Well, it's the rationale used to justify Victoria's 6 lockdowns, school closures, the curfews, the travel bans and the border closures that have gone with them. Over the last 18 months, Premier Daniel Andrews is hidden behind so-called health advice to enforce some of the world's harshest COVID restrictions. And he's done it all without releasing that health advice to the Parliament, let alone the Victorian public. But that might just be about to change. Victoria's privacy watchdog has ordered the Andrews government to make public the more than 100 pages of health advice used to plunge the state into its February lockdown. Now, the man who has fought for months to make this happen, Leader of the Opposition in the Upper House, Victorian Liberal MP David Davis, joins me now from Melbourne. Well, this is an extraordinary decision, David. Even now, one of Daniel Andrews' top ministers, Danny Pearson, said today he wouldn't commit to releasing this health advice. We know they have an appellate route that they could take. They could appeal it. And obviously, if this comes out, it will open the door for the health advice regarding the other 5 lockdowns. We want this advice. What are they hiding?
Well, that's right. The fact is, before the Chief Health Officer makes a decision, he has a brief handed to him, or his delegate, that lays out the exact reasons and the scientific material behind it. It's my contention very firmly that that information should be in the public domain. That's the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. It talks about transparency, accountability, proportionality. But, you know, even more than that, if you're being blocked from seeing your loved ones, if you've had your business closed, slammed shut, if you've been blocked from going to school, you're entitled to know why and the exact reasons, the exact material behind that. I mean, today I was at a swimming centre, an indoor swimming centre. Now they've been closed. Now, what is the advice on that? Where is the advice? We say if you're going to slam people shut, as has happened in the 6 lockdowns, that information should be released. People are entitled to see it. Sectors are entitled to interrogate it and actually say, we know a better way to get the same outcomes with less impact. That's fair. But, you know, they've kept it quiet. They've refused to release it despite parliamentary orders. And now they've got to make a harsh decision because the independent umpire has blown the whistle and said, you've got to release this advice. Whether they try and appeal higher up the chain, well, we'll wait and see. On previous sort of evidence, they will fight to the death.
Look, I've heard other commentators on other networks that are pretty ignorant that say, you know, this is not unusual. Decisions are made, for example, on terror matters, national security matters, where the information that goes into the decision, the advice isn't made public. But I have to correct them there because there's an independent security monitor in Canberra that has the right to go into any of that information. We know that there's particular committees of the Parliament that get briefed. They can't publish what they've been briefed, but they are beyond just the executive part of the government. There's a level of transparency that the Parliament in Victoria has been denied. It's the level of secrecy, I think, that's upset so many Victorians and the inability to at least put out there amongst other experts, epidemiologists, freedom lawyers, whatever it might be, David, that people don't feel that there's enough transparency in some of these harsh decisions.
Of course this information should be public. If your business or your industry is slammed shut, you're entitled to know why and on what basis. You're entitled to interrogate that information. You're entitled to challenge it and offer alternatives. Now, that's not possible in Victoria because it's so secret. They have never once, not once, released the briefing behind each of the orders. And I say the whole lot should be out there. They should be there for the public to look at, for people, you know, the epidemiologists and others to propose alternate solutions. And that's the purpose in the Act. The Act says transparency, accountability. It actually explicitly looks at the idea of being improved by having additional sources of information come forward. So this is it's a cover-up, pure and simple. And the truth is, if they had nothing to fear, nothing to fear if you've got nothing to hide. And I say, they should actually just release it. The whole lot should be out there.
Again, this is why I keep saying there's got to be a royal commission at the end of all of this. Let's go to a stunning intervention today from two of the country's most respected medical experts. Nick Coatsworth, who we know, infectious diseases expert, formerly the Deputy Chief Medical Officer in Canberra, Catherine Bennett, who's often on this program, epidemiologist at Deakin University. They've published in the paper, in the Age newspaper today, a damning repudiation of the so-called roadmap in Victoria. They've pointed out these egregious differences between what Sydney's allowed to do when it reopens and what's happening in Melbourne from midnight tomorrow night. In Sydney, we know retail was allowed. In Melbourne, no retail inside yet, but you can sell things out on the street. Gyms are open in Sydney, yes, but they're closed in Melbourne. Well, I mean, this is the point. I mean, I'm not going to buy a bra in the gutter or have my legs waxed or anything like that, but that's what they're telling businesses to do that have been without income for 2 years. And of course, hospitality open in New South Wales and in Victoria, really strict limits about how big the venue is, only 20 patrons inside. Why the difference? If it's all about the science, surely there's not a different delta in Sydney than there is in Melbourne. Why the inconsistencies?
Well, the intervention today by Nick Coatsworth and Catherine Bennett was a very important one. It was an intelligent, thoughtful intervention, and they pointed out these inconsistencies. I mean, the truth is, in Victoria, the roadmap is a slow road to nowhere in particular, to a dead end. We have to open up. Sydney's showing how it can be done. They've shown how it can be done safely and reasonably. Now, I say let's follow them on a lot of these choices. I mean, again, the swim school I was at today, they've been opened up in Sydney, and they can't get any sense out of the government here. They can't get a discussion. All of retail is closed down here, other than the most essential, but, the so-called discretionary retail, if that's the phrase I think they use, they're all, closed even when the open up happens on Thursday. Or Friday morning. And you really just think, well, what is the reason for that? You can have 20 people at a hotel, but you can't have one go into a retail outlet. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And that is why I don't think they want to release the health advice, because I don't think a lot of it stacks up.
Yeah, I think the only thing consistent in Victoria has been it's been a balls up from start to finish. It's been a terrible pandemic for Victorians, and I think the sooner we can turn the page in 2021, like we did on 2020, the better, and bring on an election. David Davis, thank you for your time.
Pleasure. And look, we've got the worst outcome of all, Peter, the trifecta, the worst death rate, the longest lockdown, and the most economic damage. It's awful.